The decade ended, and so did many sagas in the last year. Also, it turns out 2019 was the worst year of finales, with the Game of Thrones Endgame highly debated and the Rise of Skywalker as the biggest endings of the decade, which angered many of the fans. Hi, I'm your host Cass, and this is the Design of the Nerd, here with things to consider when ending your story. Endings are the thing most people remember, and what decides whether the story was worth it or not. A good ending would be remembered. In Inception, when Cobb reunites with his family and the camera focuses on a dreidel and it continues to keep spinning, you are given a final plot twist. Did Cobb really make it to his family, or is he in a dreamscape? That's memorable. Or in Iron Man 1, when Tony declares,
I am Iron Man.
which is then paralleled in Endgame.
And I am Iron Man.
Not only do both these moments show us exactly the kind of person Tony is, it is something that is quoted everywhere. Memorable. By making an ending memorable and iconic, you make sure that the audience remembers it. I can tell you exactly which endings ripped my heart out or filled it with pride. 'Cause that's the thing. You remember, and when you remember, you are likely to revisit. The ending of season 5 of Supernatural, or the Michelsons around the dinner table in the finale of the originals. Memorable. Which brings me to my second point. This is perhaps the most important point on this whole video. No matter how you decide to end your story, remember to make it emotional. This is again related to the need to make a story memorable. There is a reason Romeo and Juliet are so well known, or the ending of an era feeling you get when the Harry Potter movies end. While on the flip side, if a story doesn't have a proper ending, you get Game of Thrones. Despite the end having the potential to make sense when dealt with right, but since D&D rushed the ending, it felt empty, as if things were happening because they had to happen, because the show had to end, not because it was following a logical or emotional trail, which, despite the amazing work done by Game of Thrones all the previous seasons, knowing the ending makes it all a little less impactful. Or when Steve goes back in time to spend his time with Peggy, despite it being a sweet ending, it felt a bit not right. Not only does that leave Bucky alone, only to set up the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but it is detrimental to Steve's arc himself, along with Peggy Carter's arc. So if you spend more than 5 seconds thinking about the story, it will fall apart. Once the main threat is neutralized, the story shouldn't drag on for longer than necessary. At the same time, it shouldn't end right after. Seeing the characters happy or fulfilled makes all the craziness the audience went through worth it. Most stories end with a satisfying end where most, if not all, the conflict is resolved and the characters can finally exhale. In Hannibal, when Hannibal and Will take a swan dive off a cliff, you are shocked. But you know that it was the only way the story could have ended. Or when the friends say goodbye to their old apartment, you realize that these people have grown over the last decade of their lives and are completely different people than they were back then. On the flip side of this are the cliffhanger endings. Now, this obviously works better on serialized media. The most iconic example I can think of recently is the Lucifer Season 3 finale. The show was cancelled by Fox and the internet blew up, which led to Netflix picking it up. Or the Season 5 finale of Arrow. They literally blew up the whole cast up in smoke.